Intro to Webpack Webtooling plus performance. That's the topic I'll be talking about. Who's the speaker? You know my name. My name is Pratim, Hazarika. You can call me Pratim. I'm a full stack developer. I'm in my final year of engineering, and I'm a little extrovert and a little introvert, depending on the situation I'm in. So yeah, you can connect me on GitHub, at Twitter, and at LinkedIn. I'll follow you back for sure. So what's the goal? So the goal is basically simple. We'll look into like what builds up a CRA, what are the things, what are the tools which set up a CRA. So if we go to the documentation, we can see that there are like four concepts. There are core concepts we need to get started with. I will cover these four concepts, and I will talk a little bit about code splitting, why caching, why it is important, and that's all I'll be talking about. So let's start. So I have this simple uh, folder structure. I have just a div ID of root, and I have two script source. And index is just nothing. It takes the div which has the ID of root and writes the inner HTML. Welcome to the talk, and I'm just calling the app function. Now, when I open, so now just a second, yeah. So we can see that this is getting served, but this thing has two issues. Okay, first issue is that if the index.js script is added before the app.js, our application breaks, because as index.js is dependent upon app.js, so index is accept wants the app to be in the global scope. Now this is one more issue, and the second issue is that now every when we add everything, eh, when we add the script text, everything goes into global scope. So we have this variable where apple in the app.js equal to rupees 250, and where apple equal to rupees 950 in the index.js. So the apple in the app.js will be getting overridden by the apple in the index.js. Now let me show you. Okay, so let me just refresh it. Let me go to debugger, and let me put this. We don't want this as of now. So okay, now let me refresh it. So we can see that there is so when we add anything in the script tag, it basically goes into global. Now in the global scope, we can see that the app is undefined because there are two phases in the global. One is the like assigning the memory to the variables, and another is the code execution phase. Now when you execute this code, uh, the value of apple gets changes to rupees 250. So 250 is being assigned. Now when it goes to the index.js, it encounters the apple again. So since everything is in the global scope, and after that, when line number 3 executes, the value of apple is get overridden. So this is the second issue, and third issue is that most of the libraries total nowadays are like npm install yarn install. So you may not find a script text for some libraries also. So in that case, what will we do? And we are also maintaining the dependency graph by ourselves. So dependency graph as in index.js, if it needs app.js, app should be above index. And if suppose we want to include a heavy library tomorrow, so loader or something, it was come above app.js. And we saw that how by changing the script tags, order of script tags, our application broke, and we don't want our application to break. So to handle this, Webpack comes into picture. So what is Webpack? So Webpack is just a bundler which takes our code, bundles it, and like gives our code into one big file. That's what Webpack does basically. Like bundles it and takes all our code and put it in a single big file. And if we serve that file in our index, in our HTML, in the body, everything gets loaded. So we'll put a commentation and we'll just copy this. Now I have a webpack.config file. I'll just paste it. So what does it say? It says that first of all, webpack takes an entry point, that is the source dot index.js, and an output. Output is basically like where we want to generate the bundle. And so it says that path.result dir name. Dir name is basically the directory we are working. So webpack talk, that's the directory, and we want to generate the bundle in the dist. So and the file name should be bundle.js. Now, uh, to do that, if we do npx webpack, the bundle is getting generated. If we inject this in our script tag, say source bundle.js, okay, it will not work because we have not exported it. So let's export our app for default app, and let's import our app in our index because index needs app now. So app needs to be imported from /app. Now, now if we say npx webpack, we have one warning. It says that the mode option has not been set. Webpack will fall back to production mode. So more than these two options, Webpack takes one more setting, that is mode, and it has two types of mode. One is the production mode and one is the development mode. Now when we do npx Webpack, you can see that here asset bundle.js is been generated and it is minimized. So minimize basically means that the code which is being generated here, it's it does not have any spaces or semicolons. So it is looking like this. Now if we serve this, uh, we can see in the elements, if we go in the body, you can see that it is working nicely. Now this solves the issues of like maintaining a dependency graph also. And now let's go to the development mode and see how it's been different. Development, back. Okay, now if we go to the bundle, we can see that this is a ton of code. Okay, that we don't. So that's the reason we don't set development code, because it is not minimized. So when the mode was in production, we can see that the it was a 172 bytes, and when it is in development mode, it is a 4.38 KB, which is like a lot more. So and here we can see that now it solves the problem of like everything is a module, and this apple we have here, where apple equal to rupees 250, the just doesn't collide with the var apple equal to rupees 915 the index, because now this apple is limited to in this scope only, and this apple is limited to in the app.js. So if we go to the bundle, we can see mm, apple. Let me just find apple. Yeah, here. So this apple is within this scope, and the apple which was in index.js is within this scope, this one. So we can see that these two scopes are not colliding, and that's what Webpack does. Like it helps us to write code in bundles. Like it helps us to write modular code. So now one issue is solved. Like now we can see that we don't have to maintain the dependency graph also. Okay. First it went to index.js, then it looked at, okay, it need apps. It went to the app and it put app above the index.js, and that's how we can see in the bundle. Okay, app is above index.js, and that's how it's getting served. So now loaders. So the next topic is loader. So uh, the concept of Webpack is basically simple. Webpack says that I'll do the import export if you want, and I will ship only JavaScript code at the end of the day. If you want more than say JSX, TSX, or CSS, you need to pass it to through the loader. So Webpack says ki if you want more than something like JavaScript, pass it through loaders. So there are many loaders. We will look into one loader as Babel loader. Okay. So Babel loader. So what is Babel? So Babel basically what it does is it basically takes our code, takes our ES6 code and converts it into ES5, and also like it also gives us the ability to write the latest code without worrying about the environment that our code will go and run. And also it takes care of like the JSS and TSX also, because browsers they doesn't understand JSX code, TSX code, and Webpack also it can ship only JavaScript code at the end of the day. That's why Babel. So let's just go into Babel. Sorry for the issue. Yeah, so let's go into Babel. Let's go into the, let's say, REPL for the time being. Yeah, so what Babel does now basically, it take care of the ES6 const apple equal to 5. It converts into variable. We have this arrow function. It gets converted into the function expression also. It also take care of the backticks, and it's converted into a normal string. So this is what Babel does, and it also take care of the React code. Let's suppose we have a function app. This is nothing. This is just turn on h1, and it's key. Okay, um, React code, something like that. Now you can see here that how the React code get converted. So that's what Babel does internally, and that's why like Babel is important. We want to add Babel in our Webpack config. So how do we add Babel? We just take this code. Okay, let me go to our webpack.config and you say sorry. Yeah, so we're gonna test. Uh, yeah. So what does this line of code means? So it says that take all the JavaScript files excluding the node modules. We want to exclude the node modules because we want to keep the node modules how it is. We don't want to like touch it. Pass it through a loader, that is the Babel loader, and it has an option of preset environment. So what preset environment does now, it takes care of, as I said, it gives us the ability to write the latest code. So it takes care of the syntax and everything that will run in our corresponding browser, like any environment our code goes and run. So now we can see that I have like these few things. We have this const Ronaldo equal to Manchester United, and this is an arrow function of Messi. I don't know why I've taken that example, but yeah. So in the bundle, we can see that this variable const Ronaldo. This is S6. We want to convert it. So now we have included Babel in our Webpack config. Now if we do npx Webpack, let's see. Okay, the const gets converted into var, and that's what Babel does, and that's super useful because we want our code to run everywhere. Like say browsers, say suppose Opera Mini or like UC browser, they might not understand the latest index. On browser, understand the latest index only if it is implemented. So what Babel does now, it takes care of all these things. Like it converts our JSX, TSX. For a time being, I've used only like Babel preset environment. If you want to add React to it, just you can go to the docs and just go through this. You have to adjust preset React, and your JSX code will also get converted, and that's super useful. Now that's done. By the way, it also took care of the arrow function. Okay, it converted into an function expression. This is pretty cool. Now Babel. Now Babel is done. Now let's look into CSS. So a little story about CSS. So we saw how JavaScript files are being processed. Now let's talk about how CSS files are being processed. So if you write the CSS in one global file, say app.css, and that goes into the head, and our we it gets served to our app. But there's an issue with that. Let's suppose we don't want a particular component in the view tomorrow, then we delete the component, but the CSS which is still there in the app.css remains, because now we have included all the CSS in one global file, and deleting that part of CSS will be hard. So what we should do is like write CSS for small bundles, so that tomorrow if we say like you should write CSS with the view. Let's suppose we tomorrow we don't want to use that view, we delete the view, and the CSS that is associated with that view also does not get shipped. So if we ship more code, now the user has to pay for more data also, and during the initial loading of the page, if the CSS is being used, that's fine. If the CSS is not used, if the unused CSS is being sent, it it basically it degrades the performance also. So now let's see how we can process CSS files. We will have just simple app.css. This is just nothing. This is just take the root, the div that has an ID of root, and we say color to red. Okay, now index. We go to index and we import dot slash app.css. Now, if we do npx webpack, okay, it shows that it's a it shows an error. It says that you may need an appropriate loader to handle this type of file. So Webpack now it does not ship CSS. It can only ship JavaScript as I told before. So handle this type of file again we'll use a loader, and that is a CSS loader. So this is the loader. So let's copy this code, go to Webpack config, and we'll just post in this rules array. So what does it mean now? Basically, like take all the CSS files and pass it through style loader and CSS loader. So what is CSS loader? CSS loader basically like converts our CSS into JavaScript, and style loader basically take the CSS and it injects the CSS in the head in the style tag. Now, if we do npx webpack, and now if we go to webpack bundle, okay, this is in production, but see, there's a lot of code, because what style loader is, it added JavaScript so that the CSS get injected into our head in the style tag. Now, if you go here, we can see and what the style loader did now, it basically like injected the CSS in the style tag in our head. So that's how we process CSS files. And yeah, now so plugins. Okay, so I was not able to find a great definition for plugin. So what I came up with mine, like suppose you take a selfie. Okay, now you want to after taking the selfie, you want to edit it, you want to add effects to it, you want to crop it, and to do all sort of stuff to look great. So that's what plugins is basically. Yeah, I think I mean let's look at an example. Then it will be more clear. We'll talk about the HTML plugin. This is the most popular used plugin. Basically, it takes the bundle that is being generated and it injects it in our index of HTML. Here we have hard coded the bundle. Okay, we don't want to like hard code this. We want to generate the disk folder, and suppose if we want to make some changes in the disk, and we don't commit the disk. Okay, so if we don't want to commit the disk, like how will the bill work on Amplify? Okay, so what do we will solve all this by using HTML over Webpack plugin. I've installed the dependencies before only. Let's take this cons HTML plugin. Mm, we will require it and plugins. Okay. Now these plugins take one more thing, that is the template part. Let's include that also, because why take a template? Because whether you can supply template also, or like you can, it generates the index by itself also, but let's support our own template. So it's a path dot resolve. The name basically go to the source and take the index. HTML. Cool. I think this is how it works. Yeah, fine. Now, this will give an error obviously because we don't have an index.html. Let's just make this. It has nothing. Okay. So let's get the talk like Webpack. This will have a div which is an ID of root. Okay, now we have introduced HTML web plugin. So we want our this folder to get generated. So now also it takes one more option like inject. And where you want to inject the file in the body or head, you can do that also. Now let me remove the this folder. Yeah, now you can see that the this folder is removed. Now if you do npx webpack, okay, and really webpack has been initialized using a configure the API. Okay, cool. I just think I just did something. Let me go to the documentation, guys. Hmm, plugins, HTML web plugin. Sorry, let's it's need to be below this, not inside modules. Yeah. Now, if you do npx webpack now, see what it did. It generated our disk folder. It also like created the index.html and the bundle which was generated. It also injected that bundle in the body tag. Now, now if we see, it works the same. Now every time you say you in the when we make a create reactor we say yarnbill at the end. Now it does the same thing basically. It generates it and it puts all our bundle in the body tag. That's what it did basically. Now plugin. So code splitting. So code splitting is basically like converting our main bundle into separate into breaking down into separate parts. That was basically code splitting is. But there is more into code splitting, like why code splitting. So when our client it visits our site, it requests the code from the server. So when the server is sending server sends the code down the line, it sends a big bundle, that is bundle.js. And if you make some changes, suppose in the main.js, or you say suppose main is small change in surfacing like string, text, or in component, the user when it visits your sites again, he or she has to re-download everything. Okay, re-downloading of everything means he has to download the code which is being changed, and he has to re-download the code which has not been changed. Like most of our node modules like it includes like React Router, React DOM, React Redux. That doesn't change often. Okay, but he need to download everything. Okay, downloading of same code again and again is like why should the user download the same code again? He should not download. So what we will do is like we'll split it. Okay, so we will split it into two chunks basically. This is called, by the way, this is called chunking. Like breaking one bundle into smaller chunks is called chunking. So we will split our main bundle, our like the this is our bundle.js. We'll split this into two chunks. One is the vendor and one is the main. So vendor will basically control all our React router, and main.js will contain our code. Like split it into two code, and this basically means like split the bundle into two files, and like cache the vendor bundle in the browser, and that's how it works. So so there's a big difference when the client visits our sites the next time. So when the second time the client visits, now he or she doesn't have to download all code everything, since the vendor is being cached. That vendor.js will be excerpt from the browser cache, and only if and will be called to get the main.js. And in this way now, caching coming into picture. So whenever you think of code splitting, you should think about caching, because okay, we have now divided the bundle. Now and to cache it. So why caching? So uh, nowadays, so in today's era now, many people like not have great access to data. So not great access to data. If he or she has to download the same file again and again, it will like let a user to pay for more data also. And caching basically means is that pay that download only the file if it is changed. If it is not changed, don't download it. Okay, and browsers are quite smart. There's so that's what basically caching means. Now let's go into the GitHub. Okay, Webpack, GitHub. Let me show you. Okay, now when I go to the Webpack GitHub, you can see here. Okay, the files. Okay, sorry, the files. These are being served from disk cache. Okay, if we see that a request is being made, but it was served from the cache itself. Like the same, like the code is not downloaded. Okay, this is being served, and you can see this that this is the hash. Basically, this is a hash. When the hash changes, then only the browser will request the code. Otherwise, it will serve from the cache itself. You can now go into here. You can see that the max age is like something. Maybe this is 1 year. Like you can go and read about this more. But yeah, that's the idea of caching. Now let's take the same URL and open it in the incognito. Okay. Now let's then open the spec and network. And now, if you say now, see, a get request has been made to the server to get these files. Okay, and you can see the every file is of like 46 KB, 33 KB, 44 KB, 44 KB, and this was downloaded. Okay, because incognito is a totally different environment. But if the user comes and refresh the same page again, like yeah, you can see that it is served from the disk cache itself, and it's quite helpful, pretty helpful. Okay, this is the basically the hash. uh, when this has changes, it will download the code, and in this way now, and in like this, like the user also gets, user doesn't miss out with some new features. Okay, so anytime you make changes in your code, like the hash changes, and yeah, you get the code. What's the time? Okay, let's put, let me how you can do hashing in our code also. Let me do that. That's simple. Basically, we go to here. We go to the see my distance, which is an object. Let me go and take this code. Uh, Let me just paste it. Okay. So what does this part of code means? So it means that split it into chunks, make cache groups, and everything which is coming from node modules, name it as vendor. You can name this anything, but most people name it vendor. And now we need to make some changes here also in our output, because now we will be outputting two files. Okay, one is the vendor and one is the main. Let me show you now. Also, let me include a heavy library. Let me import loaders from loaders. It just does nothing. It just console log. Hey, I'm Lodash, and it just calls a join method. It just calls a join method and fixes an array. There's nothing. Okay, let's make it into a string. No, what is the issue? Okay, cool. Okay, so now let's say okay. If we go to the webpack.config, let's for a second, let's not add optimizations. This comment is fine. Now, if we do npx webpack, okay, did it come? No, okay, sorry. Let's create rm minus rf list. Create a list and this particular terminal. So now, if we do npx webpack, we can see that the asset bundle.js is like 527 KB. Like that's pretty big, and also it is in production. Let's make it to production. Like it works the same. Okay. Now, if we see, we can see that the bundle.js. Okay, so this is. So if we see that here, okay, this is. So if we see that the bundle.js is like 73.6 KB, because we have like included loaders. Loaders is a very huge library. Now this is like a very big file. We want to split it into two chunks. So for that we will add optimizations. Now when we add optimizations, let's just remove the list folder. Okay, it's removed. Now if I do, let's clear the terminal. If I do npx webpack, okay, what is the error? Invalid configuration, initialize, jingle optimizations. Maybe the spelling is wrong. Okay, it's optimization. Sorry. Shit, I don't know the spelling of optimizations. Yeah. Okay, multiple times is the file. Okay, now okay. See, now you're emitting two files. Okay, one is the vendor and one is the name. So we need to like tell that okay, there will be we have hard coded it. We need to say okay, the name should come here. If we do this, let's just clear terminal, and if we do npx webpack, now see there are like two bundles which are created. One is the vendor bundle that is of 71.4 KB, and one is the main bundle that is 2 KB. Okay, so this vendor bundle contains all our code, node code, basically all our React Redux, and all the, and our main bundle contains our code that we write. Now, to do caching, now what we should do is basically we should put a hash, content hash. So if we include this here, let me do npx webpack. Okay, it's getting dirty. Let's add clean equal to true, so that the file which is not needed also gets deleted from the disk. I will do nps webpack. Okay, okay. Now you can see that this container hash. That's what I told while I showing when I show that GitHub. Okay, this is the hash basically. This is the hash. Now what you can do is like cache this in the browser, like configure index number in the server, and the user comes to visit your site. It does not have to download the vendor thing. Now, if we make some changes in our main code, let's say if like something. Now let's look at the left side carefully. The main bundle line it will change. Uh, does it change? It did not change. Okay, I'll add one more apple something. Okay, now it's a npx webpack. Did it change? I think it changed. So that's the idea. Like, okay, let's try why it's not changing. Webpack. Yeah, it changed. Now you see, we saw that the vendor bundle is not changed. So what you can do is like cache this in the browser, and the next time the user comes to visit your website, you'll extract this from the cache itself, and the user has to now download only like one file down the line. One file. We can perfectly send two files down the line. Like it is not that issue. Like you have to download everything within one go. We can like clearly download two files down the line, which is clearly okay. And yeah, now the caching done. So yeah, what was left unsaid? So I wanted to talk a lot about on the performance also, which I have did in one of my apps. Uh, what I did there was I was using a lot of images that were not optimized. Like I changed only like so the performance was like 65 for the app. So I optimized those images. I have to did like dynamic import or something. I did React.lazy and the performance increased by 15%, which is like pretty good. So yeah, again, because of time, could not talk about those things. Maybe in the next meetup, I'll like talk about. And yeah, resources you can like check the Webpack docs, the Babel docs. You can watch videos of Sin Again. Like this is the best video you can get if you want to start it. If you want to like build your setup, if you want to build your React app setup, you can create now from scratch since you know now the things. Now, lastly, I want to thank Tane Pratap and Neojigam because building my first web app to giving my first talk, they, Tane helped. Okay, I never thought I'd be giving a talk, but after knowing Tane, then I joined Neojigam at Fab. Like everything got aligned. So yeah,